In this video, we are going to learn the 5-kingdom system which is proposed by R.H. Whittaker. R.H. Whittaker classifies all living organisms into 5 kingdoms, which are Kingdom Monera, Kingdom Protista, Kingdom Plantae, Kingdom Fungi, as well as Kingdom Animalia. And this classification is based on 3 criteria. The first one is the level of cell organization. When we talk about the level of cell organization, we are talking about whether this cell they are prokaryote or eukaryotes. Prokaryotes is the cell that does not have nucleus and does not have membrane-bound organelles, while if eukaryotes, then these cells consist of nucleus as well as the membrane-bound organelles. Based on level of cell organization, we put all the prokaryotes into one kingdom that we call the Kingdom Monera. And the rest, they are all eukaryotes. So we have the remaining 4 kingdoms which consist of all eukaryotes. And after that, we can classify these organisms further based on the level of organism. This one, we will look at whether the organism is made up of only one cell that we call unicellular, or made up of many cells, that is the multicellular. All the unicellular organisms are put into Kingdom Protista. And in Kingdom Protista, it also consists of some organisms that are multicellular, but mostly they are unicellular. When we look at the rest, remaining 3 kingdoms, Plantae, Fungi, as well as Animalia, they consist mostly or all organisms, they are multicellular. So how are we going to classify these 3 kingdoms? It's based on the mode of nutrition, or we say the feeding mode. So if these organisms can produce its own food, then we say it is autotroph. In this case, the autotroph that uses sunlight to produce food, that's why we call it photosynthetic. And these organisms, they are put in Kingdom Plantae, the plants. What about the other 2? They are both heterotroph, which means they cannot produce its own food and they have to depend on other complex organic substances for nutrition. Heterotroph can be divided into saprophytic, which means it will secrete enzyme for extracellular digestion, digest dekat luar, and this kind is absorptive mechanism. Lepas dia digest, baru dia serap balik, and that will give the Kingdom Fungi. Whereas for another type of heterotroph feeding mode, we have holozoic. Holozoic will digest internally. Instead of extracellular outside the body, this one digests inside the body. And thus we have the Kingdom Animalia, which involves ingestive multicellular. Dia akan ingest, makan dulu organic materials, digest internally. This is how we classify organisms based on the 5-kingdom system proposed by R.H. Whittaker. But when we did more research on the molecular data, especially on the rRNA, which is the ribosomal RNA genes, we noticed that in the Kingdom Monera, they consist of the bacterial and archaea are very different from one another. And that's why we need a new way of classification that we call the 3-domain system. And this is a more updated form of classification that is proposed by Carl Woese. The prokaryotes, we will divide them into two different domains. One is domain bacterial, another one is domain Archaea. Previously, both bacteria and Archaea were grouped under the same kingdom, which is kingdom Monera. But because their rRNA genes are very different from one another, that's why we need to separate them into two different domains, namely domain bacterial and domain Archaea. They are both prokaryotes and they are unicellular, but they are very different from one another, so we can't group them together. This is the only difference from that of the 5-kingdom system. So instead of 5 kingdoms, in a more updated classification, we only left with 4 kingdoms. 3 domains, 4 kingdoms. And what are the 4 kingdoms? They are all under domain Eukarya, where all of them are eukaryotes. They have nucleus, they have membrane-bound organelles. And this part we already learned just now. We have the kingdom Protista, which consists mostly of unicellular organisms. And then we have the multicellular organisms divided based on their feeding mode. Photosynthetic, we have plantae. Saprophytic, we have fungi. And then holozoic, we have Animalia.